Now we admit everyone.
I think so. Thank you so much. I'm very happy that I met her.
Rusoha Rashidele, Kenchela, Kempola, Lama, Kunchokla. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
Shall we start with the prayers? Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha and Dharma and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both, according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Benediction, paso. La. Aje kore. Kareko. Yeah, so then we continue yesterday's teachings in the text, the Udumvara Blossoms, where we left off yesterday, something on page 2. Cover took some so I think so we came to almost the end of page 2. I think we finished with meditative absorption is also one's mind.
Quando semzeje ne balas baba zeje ne balas chaban baba dingenzi baba chavos baba dingenzi semzeje ne jidong shine ina ta semzeje ne yawa odin ta dingenzi sana ta tere tada nyam syoma baba sujem la ba ya semi so sujem la ba de jidong sujem sana de ta gere so lando jia geba ju drop ge ju pa pa ya sujem se ge ba je tang xin 성화나 제 장초 시행이나 장초 생동 발생 제 요래 상화나 제 중요한 제 이제 수준으로 상화라야 수천 메카니 좀 돌아고 상화미는가 수천 거기래서 어떻게 제 셈데 수준대요 셈이 스팅엔지 랑 셈이 방자타 년보 탐피 랑 셈바시 마포 시비아 로타주 방자스나 년보스나 소마랑 셈이 로타주 그래서 어성도 같은 다다지 다들 말하는 게 세상으로 게치티 미발라스 개발 차대 신보내로 있는 치기는 개발지 게치티 미발라스 빅슈 방크 미발 빅화주세 방크 개발주세 그렇게 말해서 그 차대 신보내로 있는 년보지에 동 성투요 년보지에 통해 다 차대 신보지에 동 성투 연면 치기를 필요로 어떻게 아단 년보지나 셈 차대 신보가 내리는 좀 맞고요 말해서 မရှိပါတော့တာချိုးကေဝဒုပြင်းနာကျွန်တော်ချင်းကေဝဒုပြင်းတယ်လောင်းစင်တယ်အဲ့မဲ့ကေစပရိုဂရမ်မှာဖဲလောင်းစင်တယ်ဟောတင်းနေပေါ်တာကျွန်တော်ရှောက်တဲ့ရှင်ပေါ်နေလို့ကညချစ်တယ်ဒါတင်းနေလို့ဒီနေပေါ်တာချလို့တယ်ဒီကျင်းနေမကေကျူဆက်ဒီလာယုံကမားကေဝကျူဆက်နေပေါ်တယ်လို့ပေါ်မှာလေဆုံးတယ်Sam ne fühlt santé gens mais c'est pas mal c'est Sam pas fühlt santé comme dit que fond gars en fond c'est pas et qu'on a dit fond on fond c'est on peut fond oui mais surtout il y a rien qui ne c'est mais le fond on tient fond c'est on tient fond on tient du c'est cher à côté on tient là c'est on tient cher à côté on tient on tient tomber c'est bien dit là-bas c'est cher à qui n'est rapide de fond c'est une journée on va Nyumo nambara jombe shira chos. Ote nyumo nambara jombe. Otambo shine trapte de mas. Ote lu songi wa jombe. Ote tenda mo chati sarwa. Ote ne sheba shira laba sem ki ran ji namba daba. To bande kwana so. Ne ka ta to yang tian sam ji ji. Ji ji jong tam ji ji ba shi. Ote jong tam ji ji ten lu chi ji de. Se la jom den de sang ji se fang ji ba nian to rang jia ta rang de. Drupon some people teach in interaction. To share up as a central engine. So that the pictures major about and do because what in so long and short and started him and do because I think it's long and thin.
Current talk, current.
Do because and don't do that. Share up for watching it for that. We're something on the
already.
Do because what in the song was at the yes, but some but in the last was somewhat.
So yesterday we have said that so this within this single pointed mind is the training of the superior mind or meditative absorption, or which is the training of samadhi. And so basically what this training of samadhi or single pointedness really refers to is the training the mind in shamatha, calm abiding. So first the mind has to become calm. And so then within that, then it says, if you practice in this way, then also the training of superior ethical discipline is also one's own mind. And that of meditative absorption is also one's mind. What this is to say is that that actually by abiding in a state of samadhi, a meditative state of absorption, within that actually also naturally contained is the ethical discipline, the training of ethical discipline. And so ethical discipline generally means that one practices the 10 virtues and one abandons the 10 non-virtuous actions. And ethical discipline is to be practiced in all the vehicles, also in the Bodhisattva vehicle, also in the secret mantra vehicle. And for example, the Gongchik says that there is never a time when ethical discipline would not apply. It always is to be practiced, always is necessary. And so the key point of ethical discipline is to discern, at kind of a discerning ability between what should be done and what should be given up. But then regarding the ethical discipline being also contained within samadhi, so Milarepa had said that when one practices Mahamudra, when resting in a state of Mahamudra, the 10 virtuous actions are not to be practiced and the 10 non-virtuous actions are not to be abandoned. And so that is because Mahamudra inherently is like the inherent antidote to all negativity. If you only abide within that state, then everything is included within that. There's no deliberate abandoning or practicing within that state. And so, of course, generally we abandon and we practice, but what also the text here is saying is that this is also all one's mind. So what is abandoned is within one's mind, and what is practiced is within one's mind. And therefore, if one abides within a state of Mahamudra, then there is no way that the 10 non-virtues will arise. So just naturally, the mind is in a virtuous state. And so then continues. So therefore, having resolved that all the things to be relinquished and their antidotes apart from being one's own mind alone do not exist, mind itself is not seen, has never been seen, and never will be seen by any of the Buddhas after 3 times. So even the Buddhas after 3 times have not seen it. The only way to see or to like indicate and understand the nature of the mind is through your own personal practice, your own personal experience. And then that which is referred to as establishing certainty with regard to the true meaning of wisdom is the training in superior wisdom. Through this sole realization of the intrinsically pure nature of the mind, all the momentary and ultimate qualities arise and all faults are destroyed. In regards to this, the Blessed One has said, so here it doesn't mention which text he said that in, but it's the same text that we already mentioned yesterday. It's the condensed Prajnaparamita. So there, the Blessed One, Buddha had said, all the phenomena of bliss and happiness experienced by bodhisattvas, shravakas, and pratyeka Buddhas, gods, and all beings, all of it arises from the supreme perfection of wisdom. So also it is said in the entering the bodhisattva's way of life that in terms of samadhi and cultivating the perfection of wisdom, the supreme perfection of wisdom, is that the wisdom arises in combination with shamatha. So it is a mind that perfectly possesses shamatha. And so this mind, this insight that perfectly possesses shamatha is what pacifies all the afflictive emotions. And so this is the mind, as it says here, all the qualities arise and all the faults are destroyed.
这当然通嘛通这些多，这这里规章嘛那这你绿哇，这你人呢上街的，马来西亚不完强，这你人呢，咱们那路通呢，上街是，我在这啥的吧，我上街是这里，就是么来的这种专注进的光别推，专注进的光别推，这个三点那路通是，这个三点那路通是，因为那么他们就嘛了，些是那么他们就嘛些是。 Daten sie bei Nili Chors, dann sie nicht der Chors ist was das so. Was das so da so den ja ja wohl sempre ne von Thomas ne da. Simba je ton ja yo mas ne du den rare ishe de c'est la loi de l'opé. Den rare ishe de na kan de yi ju yu mes. Na lam de yi ju yu mes. Rare rang ishe de son ba chi. So da rare rang ishe de ha ko na ro chona ha ko so. C'est OK. C'est tant que dans le début de cette l'âme de dingue what il a trop so finance on est dans la so finance on ton pour le ton euro c'est que l'on a été en bien donc
so dina ta so muto
ah sinon yo sama
dina ta de ka so dina la chi amara
yo male malade
yeah. So in the Samanta Bhadra prayer, it says, if you recognize that you are a Buddha, not recognizing it, you are a sentient being wandering in samsara. So that is when you see your true nature, you see the Buddha. That is when you see in them the Buddha. And also, Milarepa has said that when having practiced with diligence, having practiced meditation with diligence, the mind becomes subdued, and to the subdued mind, all outer appearances appear as illusions. And this is how I became liberated from the disease of self-grasping. So when one practices well, this is how you see the Buddha, or the nature of the mind, and it cannot be seen in any other way or expressed in any other way. Therefore, Atilopa also said to his disciple Naropa, this self-knowing primordial awareness is something that cannot be expressed by words, nor can it be conceived of through thoughts. It is something you have to know yourself, Naropa. You have to experience it yourself. So it is nothing that can be shown. The true nature cannot be shown. So only when you see your true nature and you experience the nature of the mind or the Buddha.
that's really much. It is a new mobile phone, new mobile same days, new mobile same young type share up days, what Jiva Imo, what the new mean share up days. Share up days, then take with Namja is the Rotan is, should be Dama Mamba. Should be Dama my Yuki Deno from the Labazon, Gopa Yana, so that into Nampo, I say, Alan Goya, Dama, Magoli. Labazon said that they know on some what the dog is for is. Pourquoi Jiva any dog in the zone, so through non position, dog to Sigmaris. The one on the mass, environmentals. For the Gui Michis and Gui Michis, you know, which your mother's doctor, you said that she are wrong. Or
cannot look so that.
That is you
Dortuna.
Nyomo Babami, Yomo Miba, Sam Dias, Yomo Babami, Yomo Sam Digero, or Sam Dias, or then take it up. Yomo Miba Sam Yanta, number of Shira is, or the Yomo Miba, Shira is. Or Zondoa, take one to a found on this, Namja is. Or that you ought to say, you be the one, but my Ubit, the nose on the Labazon, Ala Copa Yamas. What I make say, Dama mix it, you shall go and Labazon said, Damazon, the Gosa meets and I'm told on us. The Gogger is from that, the Namport go out, my son Namport at all. Or in about Namport, you want to the dance, Namport dance, you might want to the dance. Or the use and a goose and a green misses there, some the green misses and the things that you cheer on us, you think on your national cheese at the use of the Euro. Yes, on the Rachel Yagad is what the Dama Mambo, familiarity, mix it, chicken is on there. Mix it, chicken, who Dama Archimbo, Mambo Kido, Najaga, some Egale Cars, the Lama Archimbo, Mambo James, the Malari Dama for this, ya not so that mix it, Chigo, the Rachunkanaya, the Chago, from the Russia, the Malari. To be much, you cannot do much, you see, Maris. Dama from Yamakan, Karo, Naso Chisares. 저런 때 하나는 내가 전화시라 요 말에 너무나 들어도 다들 맞아져야 기. 대프상아 본보 다 가린지 이제 대프상아 너무 저런 안 들어와서 제가 손 레총 대프지 나가 제가 접전 대프상아 본보서 그래. 근데 대프상아 본보서 Definitely. Tenji is what the Tenji that is a Dama Mambo of Sarchimbo. Def Sanga Dombo Nala. Drua Churang and Drua Sapiris. Maji Trupe German, yes, Maji Trupe German, Lama Charles, your Maris, you know, Churang is
Miller Repeking Lama Charles, your Maris.
Maji Trupe German, Loma, Yaku to Maris, the Chung Aja, the Chung Taco, she was the use it like what he gets at me for that now. The room magis, that's not the room magis. Normally. Yamna, she will see that's it is a team important. There is some deep huge magicness on it. My aim be number of Domingo, is. Domis and that's a same much will be on the shanty for the other by me says a con. And I take some money.
Talk for me, take money.
Don't meet another much will be some much will be. They don't buy me is a logic, don't buy me somebody.
Miller Repa, Jicarason, to make Yamo Kiloma, sorry, to make Yamasore.
To be German, a long up yet of the country,
oh, long up yet, kind of more. Jakala Jeva.
Jagal relation is searching for those, the Malari, the Chona Diana Magama, today Jamona is.
The Pungola Carasung.
If some are almost Chona and Lander was obvious, that I don't put in the Mamma Post Laura. Chona and Lander was out. That's not teach out you said, I am Maris. Or that don't mean that or three on this look. And that's a hint and it sounds like
yeah. So then it says, in short, by relinquishing the afflictions, the mind that is the absence of the afflictions is born. And so that is the mind, from that mind that is without afflictions, the arising of completely pure wisdom dawns. So the absence of afflictive emotions, the mind that is free of all afflictive emotions is the wisdom mind. So the wisdom dawns when there's an absence of afflictions. And so now if you're thinking, these are not the piece instructions that I requested, I don't need all this that I didn't request on the 3 baskets and the 4 trainings, do not take ownership of such thoughts of grasping to I and self that have arisen all of a sudden. So then there is these thoughts that arise in our mind. We think that there is this specific instructions that I have requested, but this is not exactly the instructions that I have requested. So that's why I don't need this instruction, a certain instruction. So there's these thoughts arising in the mind. And so don't cling to these kind of thoughts. Whatever instruction it is necessary if you receive this instruction. The point is that do not be afflicted, do not grasp at this I is grasping thought of I that needs to, for example, receive only this certain instruction and a special instruction and so on. So, and then it says, do not let them run wild, and without being deterred, hold them intently while resting in non-distraction, so that the thoughts become the absence of thoughts. So this term here, to not let them run wild and without being deterred. Also it could mean something like, do not become like kind of complacent or a bit arrogant about that you have received, but hold the practice, rest in non-distraction continuously without holding on to such thoughts. For example, this is one story about Rajungpa, Milarepa's disciple. Rajungpa, one time he traveled to India, and then he brought back many very special instructions that he had received there from some of the great masters in India. And so he felt a little bit prideful about that, and he kind of thought that when I'm back and present these instructions to Milarepa, his guru, I have to really present it in this really very extraordinary, special way. First of all, endured all these hardships. I'm going to India and I brought back all of these great instructions. So basically, he intended to make himself look really good. But then Milarepa, he cut him down right there. For example, when he said that I've met this which was a Dakini who supposedly lived for 500 years. He was 500 years old, and so he met this Dakini who was 500 years old. And Milarepa said, "What's the big deal? I've already met her before. I'm her best disciple." And then he taught about there's another master, Debun, I guess, Sama Tongpo, something. And so it's also a very famous master. And he also met this master. And then Milarepa said, well, I have a much stronger connection to him than you do. So don't develop any pride. Don't be so arrogant. So that's kind of the meaning here. You don't let your thoughts run wild, and you're as undeterred. It's more like you don't get all puffed up. And so then it says while resting in non-distractions, so that the thoughts become the absence of thoughts. So regarding this absence of thoughts, the absence of thoughts here means that not to have no thoughts, but to abide in the natural state, an uncontrived natural state. That's all that's necessary. So without contrivance, meaning that you don't label emptiness, like saying this is the emptiness I've developed and so on. Not any such labels, you just abide naturally.
da long rang da nyomong rang mi yongwan so da sem ma chu ba nyamna chi di na ko le ji long tu rang ji ta no gre 我这类这种就是让一他说这牛毛分的话没把强了的，牛毛把它多皮了，下。这多块的有人讲的，这多块写完了是那么多块的两两的有人不两两天了，这多块把现在现在是完都是我现在是完都没是我这现在是给的是的，这像喜欢的是现在是那大家当今那的那来的牛毛被那边多块现在羊驼被冲了那把了现在是40多。
开始松。
牛毛能跑是把现在。我们来的牛毛能把现在羊它被冲了那把，现在是，其实那把牛毛是去，那是呢，羊它。
And then, when the winds are self-purified, the afflictions are rendered powerless, and by sustaining the thoughts for a prolonged time, it becomes what is referred to as calm abiding of pacifying thoughts. Sustaining the thoughts, but anyway, so when you abide in this natural, uncontrived, a thought-free state, then naturally the karmic winds will become purified, and when they become purified, then the afflictive emotions naturally are rendered powerless, and they can't affect you any longer. So when you stay within this, when you practice for a long time, then all conceptuality calms down, and so this non-conceptual state is what we call shamatha, calm abiding. And Milarepa explained shamatha as calm and abiding. So the calm, he said, is the calming down of the thoughts and the afflictive emotions, and the abiding is to abide within the your authentic nature.
但今天中共也在这一群那个，今天中共这当抗战在了，这样去抗战在，但你妈在了是列强，你们是往西南是，那你妈在两年前压抑，唐不在开始是呢，强求性推进你推出你的强求性，我真的用法规就把用法变得七八七了，用法规用法哪块用法的我用法规就把。
La pa yung pa kache to?
La pa ti go mare ti ta yung pa kunchu yung pe ki de ne cha ba che ya no ta je yo to da yung pa de ne ko so ne
la pa ti yun chu ti che go yo res ra che go ya ra
yung pa kunchu ku bi jo ba ta yung pa de ne ta che ya no 我真的东莞下都没家，方面东莞下没家，下马这里没家了。东莞穷的你妈这个也不起呀。真是说我们都有的是吧？我唐不在这阶段的他推进的强调什么是？我这他考虑的是呢，他他妈这样子的是就他们做我的一直做我的一直做这个的一直做我这是。상지 좀 되는데 초남 탐지 디안이 준비제라 라브네스 카운트 모난 치다 테네 테단 니 드롭스 와 카운트 모난 초남 소거든 준비바레스 이 준비제라 라브네스 준비바센 소거 준비바라 초남 탐지 디안이 준비바레스 준비제라 라브네스 이 모난 카르다마 테나기 안로베레 온와 와 테니 다 당보의 장초 세모 들어야 장초 세모 냠네 기본으로 상부 장초 센터는 장초 센터 냠네 기본 시투야. 어제 장초 센터니 이제 가려서는 다 쇼비 야 남탐부 소셜리다 신한들이 양은 소소니 세빈네카 야마 이게 아니 세빈네카 다 지금 장초 센터는 사보레스 가려서는 요즘한테 가려서는 단체만 예들이 코데베네카 자동 fiktion다 남시에 성만 니가 들도 그래서 니가 조직 걸어 我真对从的真这么一层嘛，东把东墙抢着个是，这么一层嘛，东把东墙抢着，别想呢，新干地晓得，新干那是节律，咋走东把的往这的设计，那是送马了的，我那送马在东把那里头了，我东把的听着真难一在东把抢着个是，好，不中呀。
这差的能东把了，这什么？
所以这别下去个发地，是对这东巴了，我有了，我说别讲，你对上当去东西就有了，那种嘛。我的确东，去东西穷就有啊，其他东西咯。我听你东巴的，我这咋什么听你东巴下头的也是。我听你打东巴听囊，打东巴的木了听囊了，唐不头的我在路呢。这地方面的路，面的其他三周的时间嘛，这些头的看啥我的嘞。小听你现在唐不面的我在路呢哈，接头接路呢，头长周才其他那个下头的是。头没法其他那那个下头的是。
Then, so there's one instruction by elsewhere by Jigden Sumgen on how to to practice in how a practitioner can practice on a given day, like on basically a whole day. So the day begins with the preliminary of bodhicitta. And so then as you get up with bodhicitta, he says that for the sake of mindfulness, you should one engages in all activities with one's left side, meaning that like getting out with the left foot and doing something with the left hand and so on. So it's like all activities are left-sided. And so then also one doesn't let a day pass by without having confessed. So if any negativity has arisen on a day, then without skipping a day, without letting the day pass by, one should confess that negativity. So regarding the first of all, the motivation of bodhicitta, so all the dharma, mainly all the dharma comes down to the mind. It's all about the mind. The Buddha himself said that all phenomena depend on conditions, which is our aspiration. So the condition here is our aspiration, our motivation. And whatever aspiration prayer one makes will be accomplished. So everything that's accomplished is accomplished in dependence on an aspiration. So first, the day begins with the preliminary of bodhicitta, and that's what that has to be practiced until it really naturally arises. And so there's one key instruction on that by Jigden Sumgen, and that is now when in the early morning when the sun just arises, or whenever you wake up from sleeping, it is very profound to at that time. And the reason for that is that during the nighttime while you're sleeping, the winds all gather through the channels into your heart chakra, which leaves the channels otherwise empty. All the other channels are empty. All the energies is gathered into the heart chakra, and the rest of the channels is empty throughout the night when you're sleeping. For example, it's just like a grass. When you cut some grass, maybe it's empty inside. Basically, it's like a straw, like an empty straw. So just like that, all the channels are completely empty. And so because they are empty, you're like an empty vessel. And you want to pour something medicinal into that empty vessel in the morning, because when you empty, or when you fill your empty channels with poison right away in the morning, then even if later on you try to put in there some medicine, the medicine really can't stay. It will be just pushed aside by the poison. It has no power to stay. And similarly, conversely, when you start the day with filling your channels with something medicinal like bodhicitta, then likewise anything negative really has no room, no place to stay. It basically, negativity are rendered powerless.
雷松哎，
这样。
我他别听那些的，是别听那些，他真没懂吧？你这个老的，牛梦到家去当电木中，我在接送呢。 这咱们从嘛提看到个意思。我咱们提看说这龙咋开的吃的，那这龙吃的是龙的吃的比龙的啦，我的看讲究先提个的，相当于吃的是。我的咱龙提从普罗些什么，这牛么罗下些他 demo 配，从其他普罗的吃到个意思。第你得给我在你看给就第两十万了，第是你怕穷们，你怕进步，到穷的们，到进步去了，你怕通通嘛的上多。
And so if in the morning you fill your empty channels with the toxic poisons of attachment or anger or ignorance, that all your channels will be pervaded by that throughout the day. And so then wherever your channels pervade, these kind of wind energies, these negative wind energies will pervade. And wherever the wind energies pervade, they will also pervade the drops, the bodhicitta drops. They will pervade all your channels, the 3 main channels and the 4 chakras. So you become completely permeated by negativity throughout the day. And then even if you do something virtuous throughout the day, the power of that will be significantly reduced. It can't be so strong because you already didn't start by filling your channels with something positive.
我的面的不是可以是，那强就先，我的强就先的娘是那的龙给大家他们提的差别龙可叫这看强就先差别有的是，我的身体这种在他们的强就先在这龙他们的强就先可能。我这是强度个的是，普罗西嘎在的，普罗西嘎是这种提升，普罗西嘎在的强度是非常强度的是。对，你看你看给就看的起来的，普罗怎么强度是普罗，你给就起，你把切有的是。
And so the medicine for that is bodhicitta. If you practice bodhicitta, then this is what will happen. So that channels pervade, the winds pervade, they will also pervade the subtle elements with bodhicitta. And in that way, your channels become bodhicitta channels, and the winds become bodhicitta winds, and so on, the elements, bodhicitta elements. So everything, the 4 the 4 chakras and the 3 channels, the main channels, all become having the nature of bodhicitta, will have the nature of bodhicitta. And then throughout your day, whatever virtuous activity you engage in will become much more powerful. It will become really an activity of bodhicitta.
他就能他中文，真就自己能把它做的不是，那从绿的浪的加了别个，之前你当没把就是话的，强说身体切吧来点松弛，我的人就那从人就自己能把它人就现在。加这样就是这些有的是，这加上咱们加什么这样就是的是，我真的真就是呢，加上这样就是呀，这些有的是。
哦，
呀，这是加上咱们加什么这样就是的是，我别成了，一直是那种没上流浪的那，这强就先提供的这边滚，等就是灵堂，前别人不接灵堂没办法一下了的是，现在流的强就先是这个做，但店铺要工资过的是。我提个能一大阵拖上出来了，给我真都没法切我的是，上节准备的了，上拖上了上节了，是吧？上节过要准备的，这里是我真就用个的是。
In the also the entering the Bodhisattva's way of life, the Bodhicharya Avatara, it says so this transformation is just like this application of bodhicitta in the mind transforms just like alchemy. So it's like transforming iron into gold. So just like that, what is impure, what is negative, all becomes precious, like a precious jewel, the nature of bodhicitta. So that's why it's important to make sure bodhicitta becomes stable and firm, and always hold on to bodhicitta, because then that gives the mind power. And this is actually the main reason why and how the Buddha was able to attain enlightenment.
와, 근데 다들 장초 샘들지 들지나 맞아. 개발을 가지고 용거래. 세난 세류 zamon 퍼소나스. 어디는 체들라 대화. 대외 주미에 스타트 도와 상지 상자거래. 스튜치거래. 어디는 종종 나타서 개발신 그 추신신은 리뷰민 진발 세반도 송어래. 어떤 개발신바데 추신 나이데 장초 샘 마진데를 개발세요나. 추신 나이. 추신 세타 리뷰지에서 되고 양차제 아서마와. 추신 선의 베제 나서 계란도 원서 계란도 원서 베제 팀만 지면 제 아서
Carnage, ¿qué?
계란서 신제 요한 그냥
Oh,
와真的我추신的팀만 지면 저 양차在아서 말이야 와真的我对我这给我先强调先自己嘛是那这个强调的是我这里的强调先我送给我是吧送那的做不上去特别的是我这里的这里的对吧都学的明白的学的怎么的是我说没他的配送我电机的起做罢了这里的起学了就说我电机的起主要这里的起学了就没的是不然他们觉得怎么的是
so then how, if you wonder, how does everything become virtuous if you cultivate bodhicitta? So when you cultivate bodhicitta, then naturally that leads to the temporary happiness of this life, and ultimately it becomes the cause of attaining complete enlightenment. In the Bodhicharyavatara also it says that the difference between a virtue practiced with or without bodhicitta. So it says if you practice virtue without bodhicitta, then the results become just like a water tree, or like apparently a banana tree. And so that kind of tree, it grows once, and once it has bloomed and grown fully, it just withers and dies, and it will not bloom again. So just like that, if you have no bodhicitta, if you cultivate bodhicitta, then this merit remains until you attain enlightenment. And then all the happiness you experience, this temporary happiness of this life, will just kind of happen as a byproduct, just naturally. Milarepa said that as I am striving toward final and lasting bliss and happiness, the worldly happiness arises just as a byproduct naturally.
真的讲究呢，这种多强调心的中心，大法的样，六个面的没是开完的，强调心的中心呢，中心身体压的东西，六个世界呢，心都要开完的意思。我这哪也强调身体的地方，这哪也的意思。我这种多，真的强调身体样子呢，在空气要去过的时候，在空气前呢，强调身体上说掐的，在强调身体上说说那这上节的，我这上节身体老没有嘛的时候，这么多上节身体有嘛。 我真的他当时公钱呢有强调先别让说上节人是这种个强调先别让说上节人是我当时的。
Also in the Bodhicharyavatara, it says when you train in bodhicitta, then all virtues, the results of all virtues become like a wish-fulfilling tree, like a good tree. So even if it blooms once, it will always will continue inexhaustibly, will continue to bloom. There is no end to it. It will never dry out or wither. So it's just like that if you have cultivated bodhicitta. And as a result, finally, you become an embodiment of bodhicitta, which is the state of enlightenment. There is no other Buddha than that. Also in the Gongchik, it says that what we call a Buddha is a manifestation of bodhicitta.
我真的，当时留起在强调什么那点去要不光顾的是开心不的，他强调什么的，这点个现在没觉到话，就是老年人们去中国的，就是老年人的强调什么，去老年去看的话，我这开心不恰的有这样的，我在南巴土壤下对的，但你可能别等于是强调什么计划现在就，开始你们做人们去呢。 人们是两个啥，对啥样的样子的，身体要成就起过的也是，我成就起那个牛毛能多的话，我成就起，他成就起过的是啥样的？
Nga dun miyamari.
nga sa yang cha pa ang zi zi na chi tu mo yang cha chi nga sa chang chu sim
Tema
ya
nga.
wa ting ma nga yang
Ah,
du sa
yana tema dun.
de yang ne ya go de si ba ka zi nam to ra pa so pa ma chu wa chi ne kang to to chi ne yang sang yang zo nyam ne shi da chi ma ne这嘛头就原因多少，原因从两个的第一次做工嘛先把这能做这就这啊，今天主要他妈几个是那个是，对啥的几个的是。
So that's why it's so important really to make an effort in cultivating bodhicitta. And Gachun Rinpoche, he always says that to us. He always tells us, practice the 37 bodhisattva practices. He always tells us that over and over again. That's the practice of the bodhisattvas, because it is so important. And so, especially as Buddhists, we should cultivate bodhicitta from the bottom of our hearts and really sincerely and genuinely engage in the practice of bodhicitta. So it is not something like a task that you kind of complete a day. But you should always practice it. It's not like, okay, five times I cultivated bodhicitta, that's enough for now, or 7 times. You should be insatiable when it comes to cultivating bodhicitta. You should cultivate it again and again until all coarse thoughts have become calm, have calmed down completely. So until then, we should practice without distraction. And that's also key, because sometimes we do practice, but we are quite distracted. So we think that we are meditating or practicing something, but really we are actually totally forgetting about what we're practicing, and we are distracted. So it's important to also sustain a continuum of mindfulness.
真的，第一单能多，发展马球吧，能多的话就是发展马球吧去。第一单来讲，前头只有去在广播的，只有去广。我在第出个那么出个多少强了，我这边那么一把，那么多少强，我这是全国的，实际上多少强过苗，在这单那么就用你当天的现在用是把它这个说就是蛮用了，很出色的。我在那么大中估计用太古典了，这要的那个。都是强是吧？我这都是强国苗挺啥的，我这呢，让以前过的真的体检的，先把就把在全部呢开始一直做下。我这年去过的，是年去的，接着我去。我这今年这个点，娘是哪的？是这个点，我在做上节差不多的是，我这留的是。我在强调前面讲的，我留的是。
And so then, when there are still coarse afflictive emotions, like this endless chain of afflictive emotions and thoughts arising in the mind, so one should cultivate bodhicitta first, and then visualize yourself as the Yidam deity, and at the heart visualize the root guru, in essence the root guru, and in appearance the Buddha Vajradhara. And the reason why we visualize the Buddha Vajradhara is because the ordinary root guru we might see him to possess qualities and faults both. But it's better to visualize a Buddha that is free from all faults and only possesses good qualities. So that's why we visualize the appearance of Vajradhara, but the nature of the root guru. So then after you have visualized that, then you meditate, resting as long as you can in this unfabricated natural state of the mind. And at the end, you dedicate. So this is actually how we practice the 5-fold path of Mahamudra. And ultimately that leads to enlightenment. So the key point of this path is bodhicitta.
我真的，他在永巴滚球噻，在这场情呢，他别家兄弟呀，郎呢，他刚把永巴的是康波去呢，今年这球的在3万是样的，康波接了样的，他把永巴弄呀，我真的真就去呢这球的，在永巴滚球噻，真就让我来做，我在永巴的看的是呢，也把他给让的，永巴写了让的之前呢培养写有的是，这弄的是呢，在这弄永巴弄就对这个桥下去呢。 同大中的要的一些中了，所以呢，他这第一个来考过有的，可是弄军的几多年以面，他们这里用个来考过的，然后就弄起来真有名了。我这里我这刚写完中的要个来送我的，这我做我这是6点我的，用个工就把写。我在东莞写完就写，在东莞写完就写，可是呢，但你看可以进了，工大也会去过的是，这个写完这个这别强的一件的东这别一件上你这一下东了，你看这说这块的情况呢，就是嘛他主要看个的是这东这块把语人说呢，这块的俺家的要把这里卡看着个的是，我这里我听就去过是东啊下嘛样我的是工大说我说这你那个什么的上，他这里给我去的这块去的也花去，给我去的说他也行了去，包括我们能去，我在听就那么去过就是的。
So regarding the conduct, all conduct being left-sided. So for example, when you get up in the morning, you would first step out of your bed, get up on your left leg first, and then you would, for example, touch your food or any kind of whatever you're touching it or you kind of picking it up with your left hand. And the reason is because it is said that generally the right side is related to method or skillful means, and the left side is related to wisdom. And so if you habituate to this left-sided conduct, then that will also be conducive in increasing wisdom. Also, actually, it is said that when the winds are trained so that they only flow through the left nostril, that actually, because it's related to wisdom, will actually lead to the generally accomplishing one's activities much easier. But of course, if we are not really trained in the winds practices, in retaining the winds, then it will be a little bit difficult to have all the winds flow only through the left side, the left nostril. But anyways, just to show that in this way, things are accomplished more successfully because the left side is related to wisdom. So that's that. And then also we should confess every day without letting a day pass by. So every day in the evening, before you go to sleep, you should perform confession and recite the 100-syllable Vajrasattva mantra, for example, 21 times. And that will help to purify all or any negativity that you have committed on that day. If you do not confess it on the same day, if you just let it kind of a day pass by and so on, then as time goes by, it will become more and more difficult to purify this negativity. So that's why it's important to purify, to confess it on the very same day. And so you should reflect in the evening, just before you go to sleep. You think about your day. You think about, have I done good things or bad things? And whatever negative you have done, you should confess it. And whatever positive you have done, you can rejoice in that and then also dedicate it.
真的当然做欧洲我看你们呢，欧洲我现在的，但龙可说主要是呢，他提起你们去趟子，上节去那么多真看人的些，我听到见多，今年第一次我让了这么多，第一次特别我真看人的，
啦，
真看人男吧，真看人，
哦，真，
上节能他了吧？我听到，
真把没把能看了。
真看的，真把干我。
哦。
真把干我。真看的。
真看，
南宁吧。南宁吧咯。
南宁吧。哦。이게 민라.
상제 남타 세업진 도와제 비제 공지 요사래. 그 증명 텐사래. 베트남 게노 팅나 하세진 도와. 공제 요사래. 어때 공제 요사. 어디나 저저한테 long中现在欧中这个让的这么的是当然这大地方的话这是连长不呢大地方甚至用啥我现在对真的他听到开始我现在欧中跟当时长不上节是这前几趟和这些写在你了和这些写的话 不这些现在这这现在好了，真的上街在这录制那啥的话，今年他可能你不就可的可能啥的，你那他上街模式这里面那什么的，可能在十三今年啥的，对，你这他今年他了可能你不去训练嘛啥的，这先把给跟住的，
가르쳐야 돼.
我就我咱们来去趟子， 我这一那上街跟我跟住的特别什么，你们这上街是那啥的吧？我这上街是那的，上街就那的，我是那但过年了，在这个养活的上，这个把上班的上，但真就这么当啥的吧？我真的在我就我你把说全把写进去说这样过的，全写是不要不变，我这蛮有话去过的，我接着呀，这是光蛮小的吧，真的，真的真就去过的是，我压我那压我皮错的，他马当错的过的是，我这真就我就我你们俩这全把可能我就我不可能都过的是，我真那多先把用个嘛，我在第一次真的我真的那面用我的。 偏错没得什么的问题，我当时说怕让西很高的个的是，先把那错呢，我这里是，他们在那，我这当然说这里去年呢第一次呢，这是来了我的，第一次我说我大把当到过了，这当到过的，可我他在忙活时光嘛做嘛，我用我这个年呢，现在人在肯定着的呢，我怎么当到错了吧？这这个呢，一开始那很多几百来看来的呢，来看这个哪了？ 내가 가리나 테라 마이와 심바 남포 마추 테라 마이와 지디 내 공도 남포 심바 그 마추 디스 공도 네스가 핑게를 정도와 예샤 그시나 정도와
부타시든 소리 부타시.
부타시세다 저 요사로 그런 분가세.
롬마라.
성지 너만다. 성지님 뭐 로로가 와줘. 그라 부부랑 들한도 이제 저반다 진도 성지. 로로가 와줘 성지 지금은 싫어 알아 투지.
아, 콘도 말이야. 진짜.
로로가 성지 로로가 와줘 봐. 我这提纲我写出来不错。第二次上去吃完了。
로로가 와줘. 띵가 yung alam ko maraba la ko re
la ko ja ma ya ya na ha
yang
so
yeah, so then but there is this in one instruction on the Buddha gave on training with the winds, so basically based on our natural breath, our inhale and exhalation, and that comes actually from a book that was written by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's called The Ancient Path of the White Clouds. So in there is an instruction that I encountered and I found it very beneficial, especially for beginning practitioners. And so the instruction came from the Buddha himself, and he gave that instruction to his son Rahula and another disciple, Tashi. So they had received, so they were the two ones who had not yet directly received this instruction on practicing with the winds from the Buddha before, but they tried to train in that. But then when they had actually received the instructions on that by the Buddha, and they, so then really, how can you say, maybe clicked with them. So basically the point is that it's an actual instruction given by the Buddha, and they felt very unfortunate. So this is the instruction. So the Buddha said, first you have to be mindful and conscientious. So there needs to be a state of mental vigilance first. So without distraction, you must be in an undistracted state of mindfulness without becoming controlled or kind of carried away by forgetfulness and all kinds of thoughts. So then you are in this undistracted state, and all you need to do is be aware of the breath flowing through you. So you're inhaling, you must feel that. And when you're exhaling, you must take notice of that. So you must be mindful of your inhalation and mindful of your exhalation. When we are really vigilant about the exhalation and inhalation, the breath and the air flow through as you inhale and exhale. The Buddha said, no other thoughts will arise within you. So just naturally, there won't be any distraction once you have this kind of sharp and clear awareness. All distractions will just naturally stop. So actually, it seems that this is maybe a practice that's a bit easier to do, because it's anyways it's something that we can do, because anyways we are always breathing. There's never a time where you're not breathing. So since you're breathing anyways, you might as well make it Dharma practice. So it just depends how you view your breathing. It could become meditation practice. There are actually some people whose activities, ordinary activities, become meditation. Now, some people, whatever thing they do it with complete focus, and they are not distracted by a single thought. And actually, we can say that at that time, their mind really is in a meditative state. So anyways, this practice with the focusing on the breath without distraction is very beneficial for no other thoughts to arise.
that's interesting. Nam to so far nam to mambo show chimbo le se far anti team to me no na se chen di stand to de da res or the o you know sambo the you to tin the you rain strength si the count to chen xie pa ju zheng go shui or the ju chi de so sempre ne lo so tong ge res or sempre ne lo tong ya spin ge res 这套我用我的，但我用我提供给我的别让我的要写，怕人重要，让我不要什么写的，甚至这些就做空，也是正在的，我们说个让一起讲做两样的，可是那的别从其他么过来，这样子两样，这我们家来了我来有些啥的，我这就呢，我真的我马东要写，做的我要写，但我人过东的，人过东学的写，通通一把写。 sometimes una ringo tumbo ngro
tamashi tung tamashi ringa yana
sometimes marima sometimes ringo cha sigre sometimes tung cha sigre ko rang ji zo ina anti chi mare wo de cha sona de ringo yin ba ha ko ba tung yin ba ha ko ba wo chen ru chen da si ga mai wa chi din de wo chen ru chen de gong biao bo de che些dingen zi zu ya bo jian wu de ye zong duo wo chen de de shi ke chi mo lo zo sometimes de ru zen do go de gong jia di na 对，空白家的在说呢，空白家对空家呀，我空白家对嘛，空白结果嘛，比什么当呢？这确实，我这个呢，也在空白是什么当嘛，当嘛的，我这个呢什么当呢？这个基本上我话，我这这三个做，那我现在我做这当弄了，不了，我听那弄的，那不了噻，我弄不中对呀，我这这个我们这，俺这上班也不多，听也没其他的话。
그 테마시시 소인베
말에 시 말에 정가 말에 다 같이 카운트 치.
그 시시 가 시시
시다미 지난 고모리. 삼삼 정도.
Yeah. Right. So then, so we sustain mindfulness, and so then. When a strong thought arises and you're able to cut through the thoughts through mindfulness, so then that shows that you have gained some stability in mindfulness. And so slowly you increase your ability to abide with mindfulness. So you start with a shorter session, and then as you familiarize yourself, you expand the session longer and longer. You try to stay within a state of mindfulness longer and longer. And eventually, as a result, you will see the nature of the mind. It will help you see the nature of the mind. So basically, you are fully aware of the inhalation and the exhalation. And eventually, when you habituate to that, it just happens naturally. So effortlessly, without even having to try to meditate, naturally, meditation just becomes easier, and you just are completely aware of what is happening. For example, sometimes when you're focusing on your breath, then the breath is longer. So then you are aware of a longer breath. it just happens naturally. You don't make it longer. And sometimes it's just naturally shorter, but you're just aware of this, just the breath is shorter and so on. So in this way, you just habituate to a state of non-distraction as you meditate, and eventually the state of samadhi, of meditative absorption, will arise. So this is quite important, actually, this this kind of technique of practicing. And you can also practice it, for example, in whatever else you do. For example, there is a way of practicing meditation when you're walking, then you're fully aware of the steps you take, the walking. But if you can't do that, you can also then come back to the breath and focus on the breath. It's the same. So we call it the breath, or also the winds. You focus on this wind flow, the airflow as you're breathing.
真的，我在这趟做光教下了，在光开始呢，从嘛的了，呈现的可全部查的，全部的些意思，我在全部的可全部查的，全部民那光米子，全看那光 case， 全部民那光米从的，现在全部的可全部查的，这里我做公用我在那什么当干嘛可以是怎么样意思？
And so whatever meditation you practice, mindfulness is most important. That is a vigilance, a mindful vigilance. If you are not mindful, then you are not meditating. And if you are mindful, then your meditation increases. So now let's meditate for a few minutes, focusing on our breath.
Kare chaware is your way kare.
Lapsone.
Tali tindra sa na we kuju da go da da.
Oh. Oh.
Chiro la ma so.
Nè, Thrin.
So bi ke da ma so.
Di college la ma so.
Ya dan soni chi na mare.
Mare ta dik rang Thrin la ya dik rang cover di microphone.
Ah,
Dik rang microphone di la ya ba Thrin.
mare ma chawa da yo.
Nala.
Nego homa. Ah,
Nga lapsone.
mare khonso chawa chalen da chi na dik re sa ma chi so.
Nga
Mazi o da chino ke jo ba.
Nga ti ya. Nga ti tangi mo to nga nge chi chu kore.
Mare chino la mi ha ko ma so ne gang te ye je da ga ji bo mare ke jo la ha ko re na na ba. Mo shen ba de chawa chalen chin dik re sa la ko.
Ne, tishna konse kerana kato la yare.
Ka chu sa sa de sa la so da tu so hira yo sa ma ba.
Oh. Nga chi ti ko ya.
An ze chi na yang ze chen tur gong da tu so hira mi sa ni.
Yeah. So we were just talking about, I'm thinking, Drupon thought that I mentioned, or someone mentioned that we will have questions. But I don't remember mentioning that to him, but maybe you mentioned that to him, that we had questions. But anyways, what was the thing with questions? Anyways, he said that maybe today is a bit late. He didn't think about it, but if you are thinking about questions, then we can also do it tomorrow also. You write that in a minute. Because you get cheated. No questions at then the end. So no questions in today. Rinza mare tanda.
Yeah.
This oh, because it is some. Oh, the shoni molara ni matamata madala. The chichina the work was sorry.
Oh, I didn't say
it. That's fine, yeah.
Yeah. Then that's some cinema.
Oh, then it consultaron the gachi matana tere taron tune chick sona chugores nimachik.
Oh, that's Android.
Yeah, the consult care gigi nga chile lako.
Yeah.
So then that woman at the mare. So then the closing prayers. May bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. May the teachings of the great Rikumbha Ratna Shri, Master of Interdependence, Omniscient Lord of Dharma, who has seen all knowable things, be upheld until the end of cyclic existence through study, practice, hearing, contemplation, and meditation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Drupon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia, Rocco, Chanyeong.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Maybe Sophia, I want to say something. Should I stop the interpretation room? Okay, I stop it now. Okay.
Oh, and then if you agree, we could do a final session with questions. Maybe the final day. If you,
Sophia, at the beginning of what you said was cut off. I didn't hear what you said. The first part of the sentence.
Okay, I said that if he wants, at the end of the teachings, we can leave the questions at the end. Is that okay?
On the last day, yeah?
The last day, or if he needs more time, yeah, the last day we can save some time for questions.
Yeah,
okay.
So that means we're gonna extend more time on last day after last day teaching, or you want another day?
if he needs the last day to finish the teachings, we can give teachings and an extra session for questions. Would that be okay with him?
글쎄.
Tini tutu dis pena drawing ni mon lima thamatela. Tini tutu dis mangdo tabatang tutu ring do sem thambo kharang ka chu pena tanan nangshin ka chu song pena tutu chik tawara. Tini ti chartu tini tarong ti divertilan tutu dis shok. Tina senan trogo rebe.
Sure.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Lama.
Thank you, Lama.
Yeah, thank you.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Guys,
Good night.
buenas noches, Ina. Good night.
Buenas
Thank you,
noches.
Lina.
Buenas noches.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Lama. Tasidele. Thank you, Lama.
Today.
Thank you, Lama. Thank you, Lama.
Kính Nhân ơi,
Thank
kính
you
Nhân
Lama. Cảm ơn ban tổ chức ạ.
Long life Lama.
Thank you Lama.
Long life
Thank you Lama.
Lama.
Thank you.
See you, Lama.